How old were you when you first started using drugs?
I was, I think, about 13 when I first started using drugs.
13 years old.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yes, young.
Yes, yes. How were you introduced to drugs?
I was hanging out with some older kids, and I ended up kind of being friends with somebody that her mom did drugs, and her mom, I thought, my mom was really strict, and her mom was really cool, and so it started there. They had, some harder drugs. It wasn't even marijuana, so it started with crank. Then her mom would give it to us. So
Wow.
yeah, and back then I thought it was just so cool, but
Right.
now today I'm just like, wow,
Wow.
what a horrible situation.
So it's kind of like you were just really in the wrong environment.
Yeah,
And peer pressure, led astray.
Yeah,
Yeah. And once you get hooked,
yeah,
it's just a slippery slope.
yeah, definitely.
Got it.
Yeah.
Do you remember the day that you started?
I honestly don't remember the day that I started. I couldn't be exactly sure the exact day. There's been so many things that have happened since then.
Right.
But I remember that particular time. My mom was really strict, and I was like an all-star athlete, straight A student, and I started running away from home, and I had ran away, and me and my mom got in a big fight, and I think it was that day maybe, but I'm not 100% sure. But then it was marijuana and the speed, and I remember, that period, it just happened a lot. There was just a lot of fighting at home.
And what was the first drug you used?
Crank.
Crank.
I snorted it, and then smoked pot.
What did crank do for you? What did it? What was the endorphin? What was the trip? What was the?
I it wasn't even that it was all that great. I don't guess it gave me a lot of energy. And I think it was more the adrenaline of doing something that I wasn't like supposed to do.
Right.
Like,
right.
I really don't, it kind of makes me emotional, but
That's completely.
I don't know, why.
Completely understandable.
Why
completely.
I did, why I just felt, I wasn't ever not popular in school, but I wasn't ever really popular. I was like one of the guys, and, I wasn't like, I don't know. I just, at that period in my life, like all my girlfriends, like had boyfriends, and, I just was like kind of one of the guys, I was a tomboy. And I don't know, I guess it just made me feel cool.
So it sounds a little bit kind of like a little bit of environment, a little bit of peer pressure, and a little bit of just wanting to be accepted.
Yeah, such a cliche, but
kind of like a no, but true, but kind of like a perfect storm.
Yeah.
Which drug, currently like now, or you're here, but which drug are you currently that you're now facing with? Are you addicted to? What is your choice?
It became opiates, and heroin.
Opiates.
Heroin has been, that's what I became addicted to. And that happened, many years later. But
so was it the heroin that led to the opioids, or was it the opioids that led to the heroin?
The opioids that led to the heroin. Yeah, I got prescribed pain medication. I had a back injury. I had a son very young, and it injured my back. And back then was when OxyContin was like the end-all, be-all, cure-all drug.
Right.
And the doctor started prescribing it. And I really didn't think that I would be addicted. Like, I hadn't been, like, since I was 13 and then I got addicted to drugs, I wasn't strung out on drugs that whole time. Like, I had gone to college, I had dabbled partying here and there, but I just didn't really think that, it would happen to me.
Right.
And my dad was an alcoholic.
We hear that story a lot, don't we?
Yeah, definitely.
What do you think? Okay, so you started when you were 13, okay? Obviously, there's the physical dependency of the drug, okay? But something emotionally, because eventually the physical can kind of wear down through the proper treatment, but then there's always something emotional that's always behind the curtain, so to speak.
Yeah.
So what's the kind of the emotional thing that makes you want to keep coming back to the drugs and to be in the position that you're at today, back in recovery?
Well, I think, initially it was all fun and games. It was innocence, like I didn't really think it was going to be, you know, and I do, there was troubles at home, but my mom was, you know, a great mom. I mean, it wasn't, there was just, she was young, you know, and it was stressful, but we fought because I started getting rebellious. She was single mom, 2 kids. And then, so emotionally, I think I felt like, you know, maybe I wasn't good enough. I had a lot of pressure. I was expected to do well. But you know, then when I got addicted, you know, like to the opiates, I felt, it just gave me, you know, I felt better. I was able to work harder. I was in school. I was, you know, and it just, I don't know, it made me feel good. And then emotionally, then it just got to where I felt so broken and so worthless, and so much damage has been created over the years that you know, I got to a place where I truly felt, I accepted that I was going to die an addict, in and out of jails and prisons. I've done all that. Homeless, I accepted that, and I was okay with it. And then I wasn't okay with it, and it's just been a lot harder than I anticipated. And I recently had 14 months, and I was sober, or clean, whichever you want to call it, and I felt lonely, and I felt like, you know, what's my purpose? What have I done? You know, and all this, you know, that negative thinking starts playing on me.
Absolutely.
Like, you're no good. You know, look what you've done. You know, all this damage that I've created.
Lots of regrets.
Lots of regrets, and
Yeah.
just, and it overwhelms me. And it's, you know, but I come back because I want to have, you know, a better life. I want to, you know, be somebody my son is proud of, or my family, or, you know, just somebody I'm proud of. And I get to where I'm not feeling that way, you know.
So you have a son?
I have 2, actually. One I put up for adoption when he was 2. And then I have an older one that will be 22 in July.
How are you still close, intimate with them? Or
My oldest, you know, we have, the last few years, I've been more in recovery than not. And I've been, you know, in contact with him, you know, a lot every, you know, week. But our relationship is damaged. You know, he doesn't look at me like a mother because I haven't been a mother. I mean, he was in my life the first 11 years, and then he hasn't been. And then my youngest, I just spoke to him for his birthday. He just turned 12, and the family who adopted him lets me, you know, communicate. But it's, you know, once a year I call or something. Because
it's got to be very, very, very difficult.
It's super painful.
Beyond belief.
And the guilt I have around my children is something that has took me out over and over again, because I feel like some things are unforgivable. But then at the same time, I can talk to another addict and I get it. Like, it has nothing to do with love. Like, it just, you know, I love my family. I love my kids. I mean,
do you love yourself?
And I do. I love myself, but I've struggled with it, you know. Mm-hmm. And some days I'm, you know, harder on I'm my worst critic. But I do, you know, because, I mean, I think I've suffered enough, you know. I don't think I need to keep, you know, beating myself up for all the damage that has come in the path of this addiction.
That's part of the healing process.
Yeah.
Yes. How did you, do you have, throughout the course of your drugging in your earlier years, did you have like one drug dealer that you went to, or was it just always available in kind of the environment that you...
I mean, there's never just been one drug dealer. I even ended up selling drugs at one point.
Right.
But, I mean, it's so accessible. I mean, when I got off the bus to walk over here, somebody was driving by and rolled their window down. Hey, do you party? I mean, you know, so it's just...
The pressure is always there.
It's always there.
Always there at every corner.
I mean, I can be dressed in a business suit, and it's like, do people, like...
Do you believe that there is, you know, there's a lot of news about the youth today. Do you believe would you believe in today's time versus when you came up, okay, at the height of the chemicals and the cocaines and the cracks and the meths and all those, do you think the kids today are in the same space?
Oh, I think it's really bad today.
Really bad?
For children, young people coming up. It's just technology. I mean, kids aren't playing sports. They're, you know, even my son, I think he's on that online gaming, and it's so bad today for kids. And like, people aren't starting with marijuana, they're starting with heroin, and crack, and it's just, and the media, you know, the rock stars and all that, they, you know, they promote it, really. It's just sad. And
Well, and I'm sure social media doesn't help.
at all.
The accessibility, the interaction, you know, the cloak and dagger and all that, I would
It's
imagine.
heartbreaking.
Yeah, it's a perfect storm. Perfect storm.
It absolutely is.
Do you have, outside of the fellowship or the recovery centers that you've been into, do you have any other kind of support mechanisms, or what do you turn to?
Well, I mean, outside of the fellowship, I mean, I more recently have been working a lot on like spirituality, and like I started going to these different meetup things. They have that app, and like going to introduction to Buddhism and meditation, and like I started reading like spirituality books like that, just things that, I don't know, just give me a different perception on life. And I think that's really helpful, because our perception is just very distorted, I feel like, or mine has been, you know, and some of that stuff is just really helpful.
I completely understand. Natalie, tell me, okay, so you wake up in the morning, okay? What's the first thing on your mind?
Right now, my first thing on the mind is probably a cup of coffee. And I tried to, I've been really working on trying to just pray to whatever God it is that, anybody believes in, whatever, I don't even care. Just trying to set,
some kind of higher power.
yeah, just a higher power. I really feel like it's just important to have the structure in my life. And so that's kind of been my routine, and I work on that. And then it's work, I got to go to work. And
right. So we all hear about the one day at a time. So when you wake up in the morning, do you think about drugging that day?
Not as of recently, no, not at all.
Good.
Generally, I don't. So that's the scary part, is when it just suddenly pops in your head. That's why you got to really stay.
When do you get the temptation?
That's where I'm baffled by it today.
What's the trigger? What's the temptation that all of a sudden, like, okay, I've hit it. It hit me.
I think, for me, it's the emotional, feeling not good enough, not where I should be. And, it'll hit me at the most inopportune time when things are, to an outsider going, good. And then all of a sudden my head, starts telling me, you should be
voice.
so.
Voice.
That negative voice, know.
Right.
And so that's why I've been working really hard on one day at a time, meditation, mindfulness, because it really is. And I'm like punk rock, like never been some Zen, Buddhist, any of that stuff. But it really, if you can learn to be in the present and accept that you're okay right now, I am okay. It's when I start going future and past that I'm just not.
Tell me, what, over the course of your years drugging, what was the scariest experience you ever had?
Well, I feel like the most heartbreaking experience, and I guess when I look at it now, it was scary. My friend died in my apartment, and I woke up to him dead, and it was just really painful. And what's scary about it now is that I waited hours for LA Coroner to come remove his body from my apartment, just so that I could get high again. And that scares me.
Yeah.
That, people, and when I recently relapsed, my uncle had just died. I had just written a eulogy for his funeral, and he died from this disease, and I didn't even, that's what scares me today, is I used, after just discussing someone dying, or after just witnessing somebody dead.
What did he die from?
From this disease, yeah. We still don't know yet.
So obviously he overdosed.
I think he overdosed, or his liver or something
gave out.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
But that scares me. There's been numerous things that I've been through, but that scares me. How powerful this disease can be.
It's very powerful.
Yeah.
Have you ever thought about committing suicide?
I have one time, and that was when I recently relapsed.
Because did you attempt suicide?
I did. I have never done that before, but I tried to use as much of the heroin that I had. And I think I did overdose, but nobody was there, and I woke up, And I'm glad that I did. I've never been in that kind of space. I was killing myself slowly with drugs, but I just felt so defeated. Like,
Well,
but I don't
Natalie,
today.
yes.
I
yes,
don't today, and I'm
right,
glad for
right.
that.
Well, you obviously have another purpose in life, which is
Yeah.
good, which is why you're still here.
Right.
Where did you get the money to pay for the drugs? They're very expensive.
Yeah. I committed a lot of crimes. I spent a lot of time in and out of jail, prison a couple times. I sold drugs, and I did everything. I've escorted. My bigger thing was stealing and selling drugs. But anything you can think of, I've probably done it.
Okay.
That's just the truth.
Last question.
Mm-hmm.
What is your deepest regret?
Wow. Just not being able to stay sober when I first started on this process for my children. That's just my deepest regret.
If you could tell the world
Mm-hmm.
one thing about what not to do, or what would that be?
Don't think you know everything. Just listen. Just take the suggestions. Because it's so much easier just to take the suggestions.
How long have you been here at Fellowship?
Now I've only been at Fellowship for almost a month now. So I've coming up on 3 months, or I have 3 months sober now. But I went through treatment.
How's your time been here at Fellowship?
It's been great. It's a great place. I've really felt very connected. I just went to an NA convention with my sponsor. There's a lot of good people there, and I really enjoy it. And I feel more connected there. And it's not that I'm just like hanging out with everybody, but I just feel really good about it, and so that means the world to me.
Natalie, I can't thank you enough for sharing your intimate battle and challenge with addiction.
You're welcome.
I've been around this for many, many years.
Right.
And the stories are very, very similar from one to the next.
Right.
And from what I've seen, what I've experienced, the people I've spoke with over the years, the hardest challenge anybody has to face in life. If I could leave you with one message, I love you.
Thank you.
These people love you. There are people that love you.
Thank
and
you.
you will love yourself.
Thank you. I appreciate
Thank you
that.
very much for this time.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you. You're welcome.